Hello, this is Brian. Today is Sunday, October 17th, 2021. I am in the Sequoia National Forest, Sierra Nevada, southern Sierra Nevada, near the Kern Plateau. Sherman Pass is just a couple miles up this way to the west of where I am. And today I want to present a spotlight on trees. Today's episode is on a tree common in the mountainous regions in the west and northwestern U.S. It is called western white pine, and this is it, Pinus monticola. So western white pine, as the name implies, it's a type of a pine. It's in the pine family, obviously, the Pinaceae. It is a medium to very large tree, and as part of its name implies, it's a part of the white pine group. In other words, it's in the Subsection Strobus, and it's related to the eastern white pine, Pinus strobus, of eastern half of North America. And in quite a few ways, it's quite similar. So, as in your typical white pines, your needles are in bundles of 5. And here's an old needle cluster here. So these needles are in clusters of 5. Let's see if I can spread them apart enough so you can see. Bear with me here. I know this is kind of annoying, me doing this with my camera. But, kind of see here, we got needles of 5. That's typical for the strobus group of pines. So they're also called the soft pines. The white pine group is also called the soft pine group. So western white pine here in California is fairly scattered, but you have to go up to the Sierra Nevadas. You're not going to find this tree growing in Southern California, unfortunately. I mean, there are some areas in the San Bernardino mountains that are high enough, but here in the Sierras, in the southern Sierras down here, we're at about 36 degrees latitude, and we're east of Porterville, and you kind of have to come up pretty high, well above 8,000 feet, before you really start seeing these trees. Further north you go, you don't have to go up as high in elevation. But western white pine, again, is a medium to very large evergreen coniferous tree, and these trees can get very large here in the Sierras. I've seen them get up to maybe about 170, 180 feet tall, and they're quite long-lived, and they can get these large gargantuan trunks. Now, western white pine bark can be quite variable on certain trees. On this specimen here, this one tends to have more ridges with some plate blocking, and you can see they've got some medium depth furrows that run up the tree. But we have other specimens that have more, well, like smaller rectangular plate blocks, like this tree over here. The little plates are a little smaller on this one. These ones are a little smaller, little squatter. But you can see, right up here, these can get to be very large trees. Quite beautiful trees here. And these are younger ones. These older ones start getting a little more irregular, kind of twisty, and their branches kind of spray out a lot, as you notice here. Kind of similar looking from underneath when you're looking at its related sugar pine. And yes, this tree is fairly closely related to sugar pine, and is very closely related to Pinus strobus back east. And you look at these trees here, they bear quite a resemblance to the eastern white pines, as you can see here. So when they're younger, they tend to be more narrow, and their branches are very upright at the end, unlike sugar pine, with which this tree is occasionally confused, because their branches tend to go horizontal and sometimes slightly droop at the end where their long heavy cones hang down from. But generally you're going to see western white pine above to well above the sugar pine belt. So we're looking at the cones of the western white pine. They're really lightweight, as very typical in the Strobus group. And you can see these are quite lightweight. No prickles at the end. Very lightweight cone. So if these fall on you, they might scratch you a little bit, but they might hurt a little bit, but you know, like anything dropping from high up, but they're not likely to do any real damage to you. They just might be more of a nuisance if they fall on you. But as you can see here, the typical soft rounded edges of the cone scales, very common in the Strobus group. And the size of the cones, not super long, maybe about close to the same length as Pinus strobus, but Pinus strobus cones are even more lightweight and even lighter. They're more lightweight and even looser. The cone scales are quite easy to bend. Unlike on Jeffrey pine, Ponderosa pine, and to a lesser degree sugar pine, because sugar pine cones, while very similar in shape, are also much longer. Here's a younger example of a cone, kind of ripened, medium brown inside the cone scales and lighter brown on the underside of the outer edges of the cone scales. And then they have pairs of small wing seeds when the seeds are produced. And so habitat for western white pine is upper elevation, in other words, upper montane coniferous forests. That's where we are right now. Like I said, we're significantly above 8,000. We're probably close to 9,000 feet over here. And here it's generally a mixture of Critchfeld red fir, Abies magnifica variety Critchfeldii, which are these trees here. Then we got Sierra lodgepole pine, Pinus contorta, subspecies Murrayana, and quite a few Jeffrey pines, Pinus jeffreyi. Very common stable here in the higher elevations of the upper montane conifer zone. So let's go take a look at some of these younger trees while we're here. I'm going to step over these logs. Well, like I said, these can be very picturesque trees here, and they're scattered along the higher elevations of the Sierra crest, especially along the middle and eastern side of the Sierras. Pretty much scattered up and down the crest here. Go to Sequoia National Park, you'll see these trees. Sequoia National Park. We're in Sequoia National Forest here. And then you'll see them in Yosemite. And you'll see them in the Rocky Mountain State. I believe Idaho State tree is this western white pine. Every now and then, you'll see a California white fir mix in. This is Abies concolor variety Lowiana. Sometimes these will mix in. I did a spotlight of Abies concolor variety Lowiana, the California white fir. Check out for that spotlight video. Did that a few months ago. Here's a younger western white pine right here. Very tall, very narrow, branches that spray out everywhere. Very typical of western white pine, especially before they become big and contorted like the first specimen I visited right over here. So they might not be the tallest trees here in the Sierras. Actually, I believe they get taller in Idaho and other places, other states in the Rocky Mountains. I think they get taller there. But they can get quite big here. 180 feet is not out of the question. So we're going to look at the bark of some of the younger trees. I'm going to wade through this bush chinquapin and greenleaf manzanita over here. Here's a much younger tree. And it looks a little bit more like a sugar pine when it's young. Lightly furrowed bark. The bark's more furrowed, less platy, if that's even a real word. And the needles are very similarly colored to sugar pine. They kind of have a lightish green cast. But I think sugar pine would have a little bit more of a bluish hue. Sugar pine tends to have a little bit more of a bluish hue, I believe. Seems like it would than this. Here's an older, mature specimen here, but not very old. Only that one seems to be closer to old growth status right there. So, let's see. This is an episode I've been wanting to do for a long time. I love seeing these trees, and I only get to see them once every couple years usually. So this is a special treat for me. And that's looking over towards Sherman Peak over there. That's Sherman Peak, I believe, right there. Did a hike up there. I was talking about western white pines and red firs, but I didn't do any spotlight videos. That was before I started recording spotlights. So these magnificent trees. Pinus monticola. Absolutely phenomenal trees. Well worth the long drive to get out here. Well worth the scenery up in these beautiful upper montane conifer forest zones. So we're above the main yellow pine belt. On the east side of the Sierra, the main yellow pine belt being Jeffrey pine. And on the west side being Ponderosa and sometimes Jeffrey pine. But this is the type of area they like. They like these relatively dry open stands. As you can see here, sometimes they do pack together in a fairly dense forest, and there are some near Sherman Peak that are fairly dense, but they tend to prefer these open, rocky hillsides. They like these ridge lines and in rocky slopes over here. So once again, western white pine. It is a member of the white pine group, the group subgroup Strobus. So it's very much related to the eastern white pines back east, related to our sugar pines, and it's also related to and sometimes similar to our limber pines. Limber pine's another close relative of western white pine. And there are, I believe, I think there are some near Sirretta Peak. Sirretta Peak is a few miles off from here, I believe down this way. I've done that hike before, and I wasn't really looking out for limber pines, but they're supposed to be limber pines near Sirretta Peak, so you get to see western white pine, limber pine growing together sometimes, also growing with southern foxtail pine, which is not found over here that I'm aware of. So when you're driving through Sherman Pass Road, or you're in Yosemite, the east side of Yosemite going up the 120, or Sequoia National Park, look out for these beautiful, absolutely stunning western white pines, Pinus monticola, on these decomposing granite soils here, mixed with bush chinquapin, upper elevation white fir, red fir, Jeffrey pine. Just a beautiful sight out here in the southern Sierra Nevada near the Kern Plateau. So this is going to be it for my episode of Spotlight on Trees. I hope you enjoyed this, found it informative and helpful in identifying trees here in California. Look at that. Incredible, beautiful western white pine. So that was Spotlight on Trees. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next episode.